News broke late last week, man. I had to turn up my volume on my microphone. Javi hadn't done that for me. Javi, get on that, will you, next time? Hey, everybody, listen, late last week, news broke that a known associate of David Burke had been arrested in Montana. Now, more information has come out about this. That was originally reported by TMZ. Now we're seeing stuff in LA Times and other places. And so I want to get into it a little bit, talk about it a little bit, and then talk a little bit about the grand jury process, what it is, and what this could mean for Mr. Burke moving forward. That's what we're going to get into next.
My name is Peter J. Dumas, and I'm not your average criminal defense attorney. I don't help people get away with crimes. I help them get a grip. At the law offices of Peter J. Dumas, we believe in one thing: accountability with dignity. Maybe you texted your getaway driver mid-robbery. Maybe you thought your burner phone wouldn't be traced because you turned off Bluetooth. Maybe, just maybe, you posted your crimes to your own Instagram story, and now you're looking at hard time and harder conversations with your grandma. That's where I come in. I'm not here to argue that you were framed by the deep state or that the drugs weren't yours. I'm here to help you say the words every judge longs to hear. Your Honor, I was a complete dillhole. We offer services like guilty plea coaching, apology letter spell check, mugshot makeover consultation, and our exclusive Sorry I Did That merch package to wear at sentencing. Because at the law offices of Peter J. Dumas, we don't run from consequences. We walk toward them, in loafers, with our heads held high. So if you've recently been a complete dillhole, don't call a high-powered shark who promises to get you off scot-free. Call me, Peter J. Dumas, attorney at law, the law offices of Peter J. Dumas. We don't make excuses, we make grown-ups.
This video contains mature themes and discussions intended only for adult audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Well, hello there, my friend, and welcome back to another true crime conversation with me, Gavin Fish. If you like to cut through the fluff, through the sensationalism of true crime, you have found the right place, because that's what we like to do too. I hope you stick around. I saw a comment from Emmy saying it's not David who was arrested. Maybe I misspoke in my cold open there. No, it is Mr. Neil Langston who has been arrested, not David Burke. But he's a close associate of David Burke, and we're going to get into that. Now, before we do, what case are we talking about here, Gavin? Well, we are talking about the case of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Ms. Rivas Hernandez went missing when she was 14 years old, grew up in Lake Elsinore, California, and she's kind of a girl that tended to go, she was kind of a runaway. That's what she was. Now, this is not victim blaming. This is just trying to understand the background of it. Last time that she was seen by family, if I remember correctly, was like September of 2024, okay? September of 2025, the day before or maybe the day after she was to turn 15 years old, her body was discovered decomposing in the front trunk of a Tesla Model X, either owned or leased by this guy who goes by David. He spells it D4vd, of course, because you know what? We all should take a clue from the song Word Crimes by Weird Al Yankovic. There is only one person on this earth that it's okay to use numbers in words. And that person is Prince. And Prince has sadly left us, so there's nobody left. If your name is David, just go by David. Do I sound like an old curmudgeon? I kind of do. Kind of do. But anyway, that's how I feel. I feel like Prince was the only one. The rest of us, we've got to use regular old, not numbers. Gavin, come on. Can I have a take two on that, Hyvie? All right. Just use regular old letters. Now, real quick, before we go on, guys, I like to know where you guys are tuning in from. I'm an old man. Got the little rabbit ear antennas and everything like that. So please let me know in the comments where you're watching from, where you're joining me from. I just love that. It just makes me feel like I've got friends all over the world. For example, looks like we got Barbelson from Calgary, Bobby McRae from North Carolina. Who else have we got? Who else we got? We got from Oregon in the house. A lot of people that are freezing right now. I myself am in the path of snowpocalypse. Jacksonville, Florida. Probably not freezing down there. Austin, Texas. San Jose, California. Checking in from Nova Scotia. Lynn Valley Lakes, frozen and snowy, Kansas. Oh my goodness, school got canceled for tomorrow. Woohoo! Bermuda is in the house. Glad you are here. Thank you very much. Blessed by Hesed says, love the lawyerette. Yeah, Peter J. Dumas is a long-term fake sponsor of the show, and I do love Peter J. Dumas. Ohio in the house. Pennsylvania in the house. Saginaw, Michigan. Where are we at? Oceanside, Lakeland, Colorado, Birmingham, Burlington, freezing in Texas, cold Austin, Texas, Missouri. Coming at me from Perth, Western Australia. One of my oldest friends lives outside of Perth. Detroit is in the house. Oklahoma, Southwest Tennessee, currently Iceland. Yeah, so we got a lot of people, and some of us actually want to be in Bermuda right now. Thank you guys for checking in. Deeply appreciate it. Okay, who are we talking about today? We're talking about this guy. This guy is Neo Langston. Now, I, being a 50-year-old man who is not into gaming, not into the cool things that kids do these days. I am just an old-timey music and photography kind of guy, not a Twitch guy. I don't know who Neo Langston is, so I had to look him up. Okay, Mr. Langston is an online streamer, content creator. He's known primarily under the username Neo the Asian. He streams on Twitch, where his content is focused mainly on gaming live streams, known to have streamed games such as Valorant with the typical format of live gameplay and real-time interaction with viewers. He's a friend and close associate with David Anthony Burke, frequently appearing with him in social media. Of course, he has come to broader public attention after being identified as a grand jury witness in the Los Angeles homicide investigation connected to Celeste Rivas Hernandez. He was arrested in Helena, Montana on an out-of-state warrant after failing to appear. We read this news on Friday, I believe, by TMZ. So he failed to appear before the grand jury. He was then transferred to custody in Los Angeles. He has made bail, so he is no longer in custody. His specific role in the investigation into the death of young Miss Rivas Hernandez has not been publicly detailed because, of course, the Los Angeles PD is remaining very, very tight-lipped about things. He's not been charged. All we know is he was brought back to California because he was supposed to testify in front of the grand jury and had not. Now, before we get into more information about this, I wanted to find out about the grand jury system in California. Every state has a little bit different system. I thought that maybe we would get into it just a little bit here, just so we understand why it's so important that he, report to the grand jury. Okay, so this I got from the LA Courts website. The criminal grand jury is selected by random from a cross-section of the county's population in the same way in which petite jurors, also known as just the regular old jury pool, are selected. The main responsibility of the criminal grand jury is to attend hearings to weigh evidence brought by the district attorney's office in order to determine on the basis of this evidence whether certain persons should be charged with a crime. It makes me wonder if Mr. Langston did not want to testify in front of the grand jury, maybe the likelihood of him pleading the fifth in front of the grand jury is elevated. We'll see what happens. Okay, there are a couple of FAQs here. What is the grand jury? Okay, California is served by a unique system which provides that the criminal grand jury may be impaneled and empowered by law to bring indictments, which are formal charges of, generally speaking, felony crimes, and also to perform criminal investigations in connection with these indictments. The criminal grand jury will consist of 23 members plus a designated number of alternates. In Los Angeles County, the criminal grand jury, and by the way, most counties in California I found impanel 19 plus alternates. In LA, it's 23. In Los Angeles County, the criminal grand jury attends hearings to weigh evidence brought by the district attorney's office or the state attorney general's office in order to determine on the basis of this evidence whether certain persons should be charged with crimes and required to stand trial in the superior court. The criminal grand jury is an accusatory body and not a trial jury. Therefore, the burden of proof is much lower. Specifically, the criminal grand jury must decide if there is strong suspicion that the individual committed the alleged crime. They do not have to come to full on beyond a reasonable doubt this person did what the district attorney is saying so, or the prosecution is saying. All they have to say is yeah, this smells pretty suspicious. I'm catching a waft of suspicion. And as long as they do that and they vote to indict, they can bring charges. Let's see. Yeah, so in July of 2000, the Superior Court began impaneling an additional criminal grand jury in addition to the civil grand jury. This selected criminal grand jury will be impaneled throughout the year according to the district attorney's or attorney general's needs and shall have exclusive jurisdiction to return criminal indictments when impaneled. Such a criminal grand jury will be selected at random, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what is the term? Under current policy, the criminal grand jury is formed monthly and the term of service should not exceed 30 days. However, you will not be required to report each day. If you are selected for the grand jury, you must be available for service during the 30-day period of the month to which you are summoned. If the criminal grand jury is hearing an indictment on the 30th day, it will continue meeting until the matter is resolved. And that answers one of my questions. I think this grand jury was impaneled in November. It may have been earlier than that, but I think November. So they will continue meeting until they either indict or don't. Upon conclusion of their service, they'll be excused from trial and grand juror service for the next 12 months. So it's just like a regular jury. So yeah, if you were wondering if they only have 30-day terms, is this our third grand jury to hear this case? It appears not. To me, it appears that they are sticking with it until they either come down with an indictment or don't. Okay. Who can be on the grand jury? That doesn't really matter. How are criminal grand jurors selected? It is the intent of the legislature that all persons qualified for jury service shall have an equal opportunity to be considered for service as criminal grand jurors in the county in which they reside, and that they have an obligation to serve when summoned for that purpose. So, yeah, it's just selected from the same jury pool. Are criminal grand jurors paid? Yeah, it's not enough. $80 for each day's attendance. Typically, felony cases are brought. Let's see. Additionally, during criminal investigations, the district attorney's office may request the assistance of the criminal grand jury to subpoena needed documents or records and to question reluctant witnesses under oath. Ah, this is interesting. So perhaps the district attorney has tried to talk to Mr. Langston multiple times. Mr. Langston's like, I'm not talking. This is me just channeling what I believe Mr. Langston to do, not what I know he has done, just to be clear. But yeah, perhaps the DA has wanted this guy to talk, but he hasn't done so. And so he's like, well, bring him in front of the grand jury and he'll be under oath. Now, that doesn't strip him of his rights under the Constitution enumerated in the Fifth Amendment, right? But it does put him under oath. This may be true of a witness who has refused to cooperate with law enforcement investigators because he does not want to get involved or because he is fearful of giving information except under secret conditions of the criminal grand jury hearing. A court reporter is present at all hearings of the criminal grand jury. Further, some witnesses agree to testify before a criminal grand jury as a neutral and fair-minded body of fellow citizens not employed by law enforcement. I don't think that Mr. Langston here, I keep wanting to say Langford, I don't think Mr. Neo Langston here is going to feel less reluctant to testify in secrecy. I mean, for crying out loud, now everybody knows that he's been called as a witness, right? There's nothing about the secrecy that's afforded him any anonymity. Let's see. Yeah, the district attorney serves as the legal advisor of the criminal grand jury. Criminal grand jury hearings are conducted in strictest secrecy. The only non-jurors who may attend the sessions are the deputy district attorney or deputy attorney general presenting the case, the legal advisor, the court reporter, and any witnesses. After hearing all the evidence, the criminal grand jury deliberates with no one present but criminal grand jurors, and upon an affirmative vote of at least 14 members may return an indictment. So out of 23, 14 must vote yes. Within a reasonable time after the indictment is delivered, a transcript of these hearings is given to the persons charged. That, by the way, I think is how sometimes we get grand jury notes. I mean, I know that we got some grand jury notes in the Kevin Mullins case, for example, right? He's the victim. Judge Kevin Mullins, the person on trial is Sean Mickey Steins. So sometimes the person who has been charged will include portions of that testimony as exhibits in motions and so forth. An indictment by a criminal grand jury is only accusatory and not a finding of guilt. Its standard of proof is strong suspicion as opposed to proof beyond a reasonable doubt as required for conviction in a trial court. So that is the, I guess, easy peasy primer on what a grand jury is. Now, let's go to this article right here. This was published today in the LA Times, written by Richard Winton, a Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, and Salvador Hernandez. I wonder wouldn't it be fun to be a Pulitzer Prize winner? That'd be fun. Anywho, as authorities continue to unravel the circumstances of how a teenager's body came to be stuffed in the trunk of singer David's Tesla months ago, a key grand jury witness was dragged back to LA from Montana recently after a judge issued a warrant for his arrest for failing to testify. Neil Langston, a social media influencer often photographed with the singer, Mr. Burke, bailed out of the LAPD's jail for $60,000 over the weekend, records show. LAPD Captain Mike Bland said the department is not in a position to comment on the arrest. Yeah, I can't imagine that. Well, no, the homicide division was involved in this. They're not in a position to comment simply because they don't want to comment. Okay. The development comes 4 months after the gruesome discovery of the remains of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Dang it, guys. I was trying. I was trying not to do that. In a Hollywood tow yard. And of course, as I try harder not to do it, it becomes more. Yeah. So her remains were found in a Hollywood tow yard on September 8th. Although the LAPD has publicly declined to characterize the girl's death as a homicide, remember a court filing by an LAPD detective referred to the case as a murder investigation. That filing, if you remember, was a request by the LAPD to have the medical examiner's office records sealed. A swarm of police officers apprehended Langston last Thursday, bringing up Mr. Langston again. Why did it just... Sorry, my thing just refreshed. Okay, here we go. A swarm of police officers apprehended Langston last Thursday at his mother's residence in Helena, Montana, after he failed to appear as a witness in a Los Angeles County criminal proceeding. Dang it. Guys, I gotta breathe. Gotta have better breathing exercises. Deep breaths, deep breaths. A Los Angeles County jail issued the warrant, officials said. Lieutenant Adam Shanks of the Helena Police Department. What a great name. Adam Shanks. Oh my goodness. What does Adam do? Adam Shanks. No, that is cool. Is it to shank as in a verb, or is it to shiv as in a verb? And then is the opposite true? Like, do you shank with a shiv or do you shiv with a shank? Somebody help me out with that. But here I am stuck with Gavin Fish, and this guy gets Adam Shanks. Life is just not fair. Okay. Lieutenant Adam Shanks of the Helena Police Department said they were contacted by detectives with the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division to assist with an arrest. Police took Langston into custody. This has got to stop. Dang it! I'm not even tired. I'm not breathing correctly. Something. I don't know. Okay. Police took Langston into custody on an outstanding Los Angeles County warrant and booked him in at the Lewis and Clark County Detention Center, but he was en route to Los Angeles by Friday afternoon, Shanks said. The lieutenant with the world's greatest name. The next day, Langston bailed out of jail in lieu of $60,000. Langston had repeatedly balked at testifying before a grand jury in LA, according to sources not authorized to discuss ongoing criminal proceedings. Who could those sources be? Perhaps somebody in the district attorney's office, maybe? It is unclear if Langston testified or agreed to testify after being jailed. Grand jury proceedings are usually secret, and I think the only time that they're not is in the situation that I described before. In November, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office began presenting evidence to what's known as an investigative grand jury, according to one of the sources who spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the case with the media. Since then, numerous other witnesses have been seen entering the grand jury room to testify in the ongoing investigation into Celeste's death. Among those is one of the managers of David, whose real name is David Anthony Burke, and TMZ reported on that a couple months ago. We talked about it here on the channel. The grand jury probe of Celeste's death was first exposed when a grand jury case number was included in a court order. In that document issued back in November, LAPD Detective Joshua Byers of the Robbery Homicide Division successfully persuaded a judge to bar the LA County Medical Examiner from divulging autopsy results and other details related to the girl's death that would otherwise be public. Yes, it was Byers who characterized the probe into the girl's death as an investigation into murder, according to the document. Detectives spent months investigating the circumstances surrounding the girl's death as well as her relationship with David. I just got to stop just to talk for a second here because I think What am I trying to say? I don't feel like this case is a terribly difficult one to bring charges on. At least charges of like desecration of human remains or disposing of human remains improperly. You should be able to get an indictment on that. Crying out loud, her decomposing remains were in his car. Come on. But I'm wondering if prosecutors want to hold off on that, maybe thinking that they might spook Mr. Burke into running if he were to bail out on something like that. This doesn't feel like that's that hard of a case. Of course, I'm a guy looking in from the outside with no information that detectives have and that prosecutors have. So I hope that they will forgive me for my opinion on this, as uninformed as it is. His Tesla sat abandoned on a street in the Hollywood Hills for several weeks and potentially months before its removal. A tow yard worker noticed a foul smell coming from the Tesla and alerted the LAPD. That makes me feel like the tow company, they knew what that was. Like they had this experience before. That's decomp. We've got a dead body in this car. Call the police. Makes me wonder. Inside the trunk, police found a black bag containing Celeste's remains. And of course, this goes without saying, but putting her remains into a black bag and then stuffing that into the trunk of a car feels like consciousness of guilt, doesn't it? Like we've got to hide this. I remember being on a local case, I was assigned by my work in my capacity as a reporter for my day job to report on a trial in our area where a woman was poisoned to death by her domestic partner, and he put her body into a metal 55-gallon drum. And he said it's because he didn't want the kids to find her body. But the prosecution, at least to my memory, used that as consciousness of guilt. He knew what was wrong. He was trying to hide what was obviously wrong, the murder of his domestic partner. So in this case with Celeste, putting her body in a black bag, putting it in the trunk of a car, that screams consciousness of guilt to me. It screams it. Before the sealing of medical examiner's records, the office revealed she weighed 71 pounds and had SHHH tattooed on her finger. Authorities uncovered her body the day after her 15th birthday. LAPD Captain Scott Williams, who leads the robbery homicide division, said the girl had been dead for at least several weeks. Williams said the body had not been decapitated or frozen, as some media outlets have reported, which included TMZ. I am ashamed to say that I repeated that. Well, I just reported that they had reported it. I didn't report it as a fact. I didn't know it. And you got to be careful with TMZ, because sometimes they do. Their reporting of Mr. Langston was spot on. They had it spot on. So you just got to be very careful. Detectives determined that the Tesla had been left parked along Bluebird Avenue since late July, around the time that David began a national tour. The tour was canceled soon after the death investigation drew worldwide media attention. So that's where we are. Mr. Langston, he's going to have to testify. Well, he's going to have to appear before the grand jury, but his testimony could simply be by the advice of my counsel. I invoke my right to not incriminate myself as protected by the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution, something like that. But my question is, how much longer until we get an actual arrest here? Like an arrest with charges of murder. How much longer? And will it be Mr. Burke who is the suspect? Because remember, I mean, it was his car. There are clips with the two of them together, if you guys remember this, right? Very incriminating clips, but that is just suspicion. Could it have been somebody else? I feel like that's less likely, but could it have been? I mean, I guess. Let's bring Celeste back up and head on over to your comments. Let's see. Mooney says, isn't it the running joke that a grand jury can indict a ham sandwich? It is. In fact, I think Josh Ritter repeated that joke right here on this channel with me. Yeah, that is the running joke. So you just need to convince 14 out of 23 people that there is strong suspicion that a crime has been committed. Looks like we got. It doesn't matter. Thank you very much to my mods who are keeping things classy. Have I been tangent? Did I get on a couple tangents? I did. Okay, I'm gonna. You know what, Javi? You gotta let me know these things, man. You're the one pushing the buttons. It's not me. Push the buttons, man. Phew. Okay. Now Javi's learning. Listen, I apologize. I hope that didn't come off as harsh. You're learning the job. It's fine. Promise J Rhodes says the same thing happens to me with shallow breathing and yawning. I feel you. It's always when I have longer conversations. Yeah, I gotta keep my chest full of air. Thank you very much. I don't drink coffee. In fact, I haven't had any caffeine since August. I have been drinking pure water. This is a smart water bottle, but it is not smart water. It is just me reusing the bottle over and over and over again because I do like their bottles. But yeah, I've just been drinking water in my Dill Hole coffee mug. And I've never been a coffee drinker, but I have been a caffeine drinker. I would call myself a Pepsi addict. Robin, I don't even want to hear it, okay? Don't even want to hear it. Yeah, Javi's on it this time. Javi, well done. Let's see. Bobby McRae is saying, yawning is our body's natural response to reduced oxygen intake. I notice you only yawn when you're reading a document, not while just talking. Yeah. Kimberly noticed that I'm not taking deep enough breaths and I'm running all the way out till I'm out of oxygen. I gotta stop. California Hawkeye says, well, the relationship was wrong in itself and she was a minor. Why don't they hold him on that at least? Exactly, man. This clip where we've got a grown man and a young teenager. I'm sorry. That is an inappropriate relationship. It's just inappropriate all the way around. When you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you should not be hanging out with 14-year-olds unless it's like your kid brother or sister, right? It's just wrong all the way around. Let's see. Emmy says, no offense, but hoping for no arrest. Well, I'm hoping for justice. I'm hoping for an arrest. It may be Mr. Burke. It may be somebody else. But yeah. Robin says, the irony is I can't think in a linear manner even when I try to. one thought leads to another thought to another, and then add a song, maybe dance, and then back to the main point. Maybe, yeah. I think it's hard to keep on. It's hard to keep on a, you know, what was I trying to keep on, Javi? Yeah. What was it? Yeah. What is it? It's, it's hard. It's hard to keep on the same track, I guess. Yes. Okay, guys. So that is the update on Mr. Langston and on Celeste's case. This is one where I think, again, we're not going to see much happen until, boom, it finally happens. Whether it is Mr. Burke or somebody else who is arrested, I don't know, but I do think that an arrest is coming here. How do you end up? How do you end up in inside a black bag inside the trunk of a car? Yeah. California Hawkeye. Oh, looking after me. Don't reuse the bottles. It's proven. Let's say chemicals in the plastic break down after multiple uses. Dang it! The thing about it is it's perfectly 20 ounces. And it's really easy for me to track my drinking every day, my water intake, if I can just do it 20 ounces at a time. Dang it! All right. That's your tangent, not mine. All right, that guys. What are we doing next? We are going into 3 questions. Let's go for it.
It's 3 questions with Gavin Fish.
Pow! Okay, guys, in this segment, I answer your questions that you send to me. I answer 3 of them at a time. But you can send them in 1 at a time, 1,000 at a time. You can send them in as often as you want, but send them to me to my email address, which is 3questions@gavinfish.com. 3questions@gavinfish.com. It's spelled out THREE questions@gavinfish.com. And I promise that I will do my best to do my duty to answer the questions honestly, faithfully, and completely. And you can ask anything. They can be questions about the universe, which I have, no real expertise in, or just questions about me. What I don't want is stuff that will give away. What I won't answer is like questions about like my children and stuff like that. But for the most part, I will answer on all of them completely. Okay. Question number 1. With living in so many places, what makes Pennsylvania so special to you? Well, Pennsylvania is, we decided to move to Pennsylvania after deciding we just wanted a family adventure. We wanted to leave California for a while. We didn't know how long. It could have been a couple of years. It could have been forever. So far, it's been 8.5 years. And we went on a search for where we wanted to live. We are data-driven people, and so we took about a year to decide what are the things that are most important to us in determining where it is that we want to live. If memory serves, there were 23 different things that, or maybe 26. I think it was 23 different things that were important to us. Some of it included climate, some of it included demographics, some of it included, real estate prices. There were a whole bunch of things. And we ultimately, after about a 2.5, 3-year search, we landed on Pennsylvania. Now, what makes it so special? Pennsylvania is special to me because that's where my family is. I subscribe to the Daniel LaRusso theory or philosophy of where home is. Home is where you hang your hat. And for me, as long as Kimberly's hat is hung there and our children's hats are hung there, then that is home to me. I could live in Timbuktu. I could live back in California. I could live in Argentina, Portugal. I don't care. As long as Kimberly and as long as they are our dependents, the children are with us. But I do love Pennsylvania. I love the rolling hills. I love the dense forests. I love the river valleys. I love our proximity to so many cool things, including the Great Lakes and the Atlantic Ocean. I love the history of being in one of the original 13 colonies. I love the uh, things that happened in the Civil War happened here in Pennsylvania. I love that in our local cemetery, our historic cemetery, we have heroes buried there from the Revolutionary War, the War of 1812, the French Indian War, the Civil War. There's just so much history here. So that's what makes Pennsylvania special to me. But as long it's no more special to me than anywhere else where my wife and children are. Yeah, I think that's maybe the honest, yeah, and complete answer. Question number 2. What do you feel is, or how would you define the line between the public's right to know and what should just be left to victim privacy? This question came in a long email. I don't want to give away tons of information out of that email because it is private, but I will say that this question came from a family member of a victim. So I am going to weigh in my response the questioner. Okay, I'm going to give that weight, I guess is what I'm going to say. But as a journalist and as a guy that's I am distrusting of bureaucracy, either public or private, at any level. Okay, secrecy is always a bad thing. Is it always a bad thing? No, it's not always a bad thing. There are secrets that are good to keep, but secrets in bureaucracy, I think, are a bad thing. Now there are good reasons to keep secrets, but I think that those secrets should be after a certain amount of time released to the public. So I think the public has a right to know everything that our public servants do. Everything. Everything. Now, in the case of, for example, I frequently write up reports on accidents where lives are lost or crimes where lives are lost. And so I'm frequently interacting with county coroners and police departments and fire and rescue and stuff like that. And I frequently will be told, hey, Gavin, I can't give you that information. I really want to get the family notified first. And I'm super respectful of that. And I'm grateful that they want to do that. If I were a family member of a victim, I would want that to happen before the information got out about my loved one who died. And there is a certain amount of rubbernecking that happens with the public. But it's so important to me that there be transparency in bureaucracy, specifically in government. And I'm talking like your local area, your school boards, your township supervisors, your everything, right? Your city councils, your mayor's offices, all of your county commissioners, all of those should be 100% transparent. And most of the time, at least in my experience, they fight against that. One of the downsides to transparency is the digital rubbernecking, the Monday morning quarterbacking, the horrible comments online. And I recognize that that is a thing, but I think it's a small price to pay for transparency. And that's where I stand. And I certainly respect your opinion if it differs from mine. Last question. Do I play any musical instruments? I think the answer to that is yes, though I wouldn't call myself a musician. I can noodle around on pretty much anything with strings. So a guitar, a ukulele, a banjo, a mandolin, a dulcimer, a charango, anything that's a roots instrument. I'm proficient-ish at it. I enjoy it. Yeah. But do I say that like if I were in a room of musicians and they say, "Oh, you play the guitar. Do you play anything else?" I would say, "No, I don't play anything else. I barely play the guitar." Because I wouldn't want them to go, "Oh, let's play the whatever together." I'm like, can you pick up this mandolin and play along with us? Well, if you gave me 8 weeks to rehearse what it is that you want to play, then yes, but just play? No. But I am fascinated by the mechanics of instruments. I love it. I just love it. We own a John Broadwood and Sons grand piano from the 19th century, and I am the tuner and maintenance guy on that piano. We own a Lowry Church organ from the 1950s. In fact, I just started a teardown of the electronics on that one. Because I want to keep the electronics working, but there are some shorts in some of the old brittle cotton wires. I love that part of it. We own several instruments, several woodwinds, several brass instruments, mostly roots instruments and stuff, and a couple pianos and stuff. I just really love the I don't know, the mechanical nature of musical instruments. And I also love the construction of music. So I will sometimes, not very often, sometimes I will compose music. The intro to this YouTube channel, I composed that. Sometimes I will make arrangements of music, but I still wouldn't call myself a musician. For example, a couple of years ago, Kimberly's grandfather died, and he had a particular hymn that he wanted sung at his funeral, and that task fell on our family to do. It was a hymn that he loved, and it was one that I just didn't really like all that much. It was written almost as a waltz, and it's really long. And so I did a 4/4 arrangement of it. I picked up the tempo a little bit and arranged the harmonies a little bit differently, and did the instrument voicing and so forth, recorded it so that it could be played to us singing at the funeral. I like doing stuff like that. But am I a musician? No, I am not. I would love to know what your answers to these questions are. What are they? The questions are, what makes where you live so special? What do you feel about the fine line between a public's right to know and victim privacy? And do you play any musical instruments or have any talents that you would like to share with the rest of us? And while you get your little thumbs working on those, answering those 3 questions, let's get into headlines. Pow. Okay, just a couple headlines to bring to your attention. I think I may have brought this up on Friday, but I couldn't remember. On Friday, Ashley Buzzard, who is accused of murdering her daughter Melody Buzzard, was in a Lompoc court. The district attorney, on Wednesday, Judge Stephen Dunkel extended the gag order prohibiting law enforcement from speaking about the case to the public for the duration of the trial. Buzzard's defense requested the gag order on December 24th, the day after the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office held a press conference on Buzzard's arrest. At that press conference, Santa Barbara County Sheriff Bill Brown said that Buzzard had committed a heinous crime and had done so calculatingly and in cold blood. He gets to do that because he is making the accusation. But the defense was like, hey, man, Not cool. The defense said that law enforcement made claims, but as of January 21st had not provided the defense evidence that corroborated those claims. Okay. In a statement to The Independent, Senior Deputy Public Defender Erica Sutherland said she told the court on Wednesday that the defense was missing forensic evidence for the case, so they still haven't delivered everything in discovery. So Judge Dunkel ordered that search warrants and affidavits in Buzzard case, including the warrants and affidavits to search her house, her storage locker, her electronic devices, and her bank account be made available to the defense but remain sealed to the public. So unfortunately for us who want to know those things, we're not going to find out until or if there is a trial and until that trial happens. So I just wanted to make sure that I covered that. Secondly, and this is the last headline for today, I found this article in the Washington Post. It is a long read. It's about a 20-minute read. And it is titled How Friends Describe Nick Reiner, the son of Rob and Michelle Reiner. And I just want to read, I don't know why it has a picture of Alan Jackson, the no longer representing Mr. Reiner picture at the top. But anyway, written by Amy Kaufman, very well written. Check it out in the Washington Post. Okay, this is what it says. And I'm just going to read the first 5 or 6 paragraphs here. Rob Reiner lifted a turkey leg and asked those gathered around the Thanksgiving table to partake in a holiday tradition. The guests would pass the meat to one another, each taking a turn sharing what they were grateful for. Kind of gross, but okay. Maybe don't eat that turkey leg after everybody's been touching it, but okay. Nick Reiner, Rob's son, was seated next to his father. It was 2018, and Nick was living in the guest house on his parents' $13.5 million compound in Brentwood, where the garden was filled with roses planted by the home's original owner, Henry Fonda. Unemployed at 25, Nick had spent a decade bouncing between this gated enclave and at least 18 rehab facilities paid for by his parents, Rob and Michelle Singer Reiner. He has told stories on an addiction podcast about going to downtown Los Angeles' Skid Row to procure heroin and shooting crack cocaine in a McDonald's restroom in Maine. But after each bout of degeneracy or failed treatment, he always seemed to end up back here with his parents. For as much as he resisted their interventions, Nick had become accustomed to the trappings of his privileged upbringing. Unlike at rehab, he had a staff to tidy up for him at home. He was so attached to his private quarters that he once demanded the family's housekeeper retrieve him from a friend's house across town so he could use his own bathroom, a childhood friend recalled. Tensions were high that Thanksgiving, according to a guest who attended the meal with roughly 20 others. This person saw signs that Nick might be using air freshener to cover smells in the billiard room, quote, screaming, yelling, cursing, close quote, throwing tantrums so violent one longtime household employee threatened to quit. As the turkey leg made its way around the personalized place settings and professional flower arrangements, guests and family waxed rhapsodic about the bountiful blessings in their lives. Then it was Nick's turn. Quote, well, I'm certainly not grateful for this effing food, and I'm not grateful for any of you freeloaders in my house. I just can't wait to get through this effing dinner so I can get back to my room, Nick yelled, according to the dinner guest. Then he threw the turkey leg at his father's plate. Rob smiled, the guest said, and picked up the leg. Well, that's really easy to follow. Thanks, Nick. Let me just read a little bit more. This is like most whom the Washington Post? No, like, I don't think so. Like most who the Washington Post spoke to for, you would say, like most to whom the Washington Post spoke for this story. That's weird. That's a weird sentence structure, but okay. The people who described Nick's behavior spoke on condition of anonymity due to the sensitivity of this situation after his parents were fatally stabbed in their home in December. Facing murder charges that could carry the DP, Nick, now 32, and his attorneys have repeatedly postponed his plea hearing. I mean, they've done it twice, so I guess repeatedly is fair. amid reports of mental illness and questions about where his siblings Jake, 34, and Romy, 28, stand in regard to his defense. A Reiner family spokesperson declined to comment. A spokesperson for the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office, which is representing Nick, declined to answer questions for this story. His previous attorney, Alan Jackson, has said emphatically Nick Reiner is not guilty of murder. So, last one. Interviews with 14 individuals who knew Reiner, as well as interviews he gave to an addiction podcast from 2016 to 2018, paint a portrait of a complicated young man struggling to find his footing in the world. I think that's maybe giving a little too much grace. The son of one of the most celebrated filmmakers in Hollywood, Reiner viewed himself as a black sheep in his family and was often consumed by feelings of inadequacy, with occasional bursts of temper or violence that usually coincided with drug use. His parents committed endless resources toward his recovery, sending him to treatment centers where most of his peers told the Post he was goofy and well-liked. But after each rehab stint, he would return to treating his addictions casually, even when they led him to despondence and destitution. And there are another 7 pages to this. Maybe we will talk about this tomorrow in tomorrow's live stream. But yeah, the Mr. Nick Reiner, definitely had issues, man. Definitely had issues. And it seems to me like, and I don't want to minimize this because addiction is tough once you're addicted. But like getting there just because you're rebellious, because you have a terrible life, you think, because your life is so good, I have a hard time understanding that. I have a real hard time understanding that. But that is an article that I suggest that you all read. Maybe put in the comments if you think we ought to go over that tomorrow. And those are your headlines.
True crime headlines.
Okie dokie. Let's go to your comments. Merch idea from Robin: 20-ounce water bottles with a dill hole logo. See? Yeah, you guys are smarter than me. Got to do that. Emmy says, we'll never leave California, moved here from boring Louisiana. I like Louisiana. I do. I won't ever say never to anything. Kimberly and I, we've always been willing to go wherever the work takes us. And when work didn't have a particular place for us, we just decided where we wanted to go. But we didn't leave California saying, spitting on the ground, dusting our shoes off and saying, I'll never be back here again. No, we were raised there. We love it there. Our parents are there. Siblings are there. We might go back to California. Let's see a couple of other things. Mogs, I agree, and also hold law enforcement and other entities accountable regarding transparency. Thank you. California Hawkeye, this is a tough question, but I can't answer it because it has not been sent to 3 questions at gavinfish.com. Mooney says, I sing and kind of play the guitar. Used to be good playing the guitar, but haven't kept up with it. Yeah, it definitely is a perishable skill for sure. And sometimes I will go months without picking up a guitar. I typically never go longer than a week without picking up an ukulele. I subscribe to the whole George Harrison thing, right? George Harrison was an ukulele lover and always had them with him. We have a music room. I think I've probably shown a picture of it in the tank that has lots of instruments in it. Let me see if I can find that photo for you real quick. I think I've posted something. But of course, the family photo was taken in the music room. This is our grand piano. We really shouldn't be sitting on it. It's an antique, but I think I have posted in here before. Goodness, I've posted a lot of stuff in here. Well, a lot of us have. It's not just me. But it might be one of my early posts. A picture of the old music room. I would imagine it's one of the early ones. As dead air. This is, I guess I haven't. Anyway, I have a whole wall of guitars and ukuleles and stuff like that to always have at the ready to play. Miss Chivos Dragon says, I'm a self-taught guitar player for over 40 years. I took a free class last year at the library. Intermediate guitar with 12 other students. Did not like. Noodling is way better. I've never taken a class. I think that would be fun. I think I might. Heather Whatever says, how terribly sad for the hosts and guests. Nick failed to realize he was a recipient of their generosity. Yeah, the irony there. A bunch of freeloaders. Like, what are you, sir? Emmy, can you post a link to the Washington Post article, please? Yeah, give me a second. I can do that. I will put it in the live chat right now for you guys. Okay. Scotch's mom says, I'd love to read the article, but there's a paywall. Yes, you should go over it. The link that I just gave you in the live chat does not have a paywall. Gavin, if they only got proper counseling as they would have to apply tough love. I think they tried a lot of stuff. Gavin, how old is your house? Beautiful stained glass and those wood floors. Beautiful. Yeah, our house was built in 1903. It's 123 years old this year. Shishi Realtor says, you got to stand on something, Gavin. How you said I'm not a musician, but you play, have a whole room of instruments, and you composed. Yeah, but there are people who can play, and then there are musicians. Okay, I am not a musician. That's funny. Let's see. And then, no, Mooney, that article is not behind a paywall. I gave you the archive.is link. Okay, with that, guys, I think that's time for us to wrap up for this evening. Thank you very much for spending some time with me tonight. We will be back tomorrow night, 6 p.m. And maybe going back over to the Rob and Michelle Reiner murders. Kind of depends on what else is going on. Oh, before we go, let me just pause for a minute for those of you who stay all the way to the very end. Today is January 26th, 2026. It is the 15th anniversary of the murder of Ellen Greenberg. For 15 years, Ellen Greenberg's parents have been fighting the system in the city of Philadelphia to get their daughter's manner of death changed to a homicide, which it obviously is. So if you're on Facebook or if you're on Twitter or, on the socials where the Justice for Ellen pages are, maybe send them a message and let them know that you're thinking about Josh and Sandy on this day, the 15th anniversary of Ellen's death. It's a hard day. I'm actually about to call them as soon as we're done here. But just wanted to bring that up because it's important to me. I know it's important to them, and I know it's important to this community. So thank you very much for that. With that, guys, I shall bid you adieu. Thank you very much for being with me tonight, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.